Hey everyone, welcome back to Film Rinks. Today I'm going to talk about my favorite type of video games. And this is going to deviate from films, of course, but I do like talking about content, and gaming is a sort of content that also has cinematic features. So I do think that I'm not too far out of the ballpark here, because a lot of times the video games I'm going to talk about often feel like movies, and you're just being able to play alongside that. The two I want to talk about today is God of War 4 and 5, and as well as Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm not going to talk about everything about God of War in both games, just going to hit like cliff notes, and same with Red Dead Redemption. Just gonna hit the cliff notes. I'm not gonna talk about everything, that'll take way too long. These are very long games, and if you haven't tried them, I would suggest them if you're an adult, of course, because it's adult content. So spoiler alert, I'm gonna spoil these games, so just be aware of that. If you haven't played them, check them out, come back to this video, or if you don't care, just watch. That's totally fine. And what I want to say about these games is, and why I like them so much, is not even just because they're RPG and they're blockbuster hit type of games. Of course, they're really popular games, but they're also very well made, of course, and the dialogue is really good, and the character development is immaculate. So why that's important to this video is because these games, like specifically was the main character that we're playing as, Kratos, and then in Red Dead Redemption 2 is Arthur Morgan. We go through this arc between these characters who have been known to do stuff that is pretty heinous, and they didn't start out all bad. People aren't just born evil or born like the most saint-like person ever. Some people carry themselves that way because of the way they grow up, like depending on what they choose. And all of it is, again, all factored in by decisions, not because it was already within you to be bad or already within you to be a saint or a good person. Because I don't want to use saint. A saint is more like a perfect type of individual who can do no wrong. And let's face it, as human beings that we are flawed. We are not perfect. The only one who can never be considered perfect is God. And if you're not religious or you're not into faith, that's something that I can't really judge you on. But that's really all I can say, is that humans are also just flawed. So I think that's something we can all agree on. So what I want to say is that these characters are very interesting. God of War, we understand that Kratos, he is tyrannical, he is obsessed with power, he is willing to kill his own family members to become the most powerful. He's been betrayed by Ares and Zeus in some sort of ways, and I haven't completely played the games. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I've only seen what I've seen from YouTube, because again, they're also just long games that not everyone has the time for at the moment. But I get, again, the cliff notes. So he's a character that's obviously has been brought up to be a strong warrior and prove himself as like a demigod, and not being the most powerful, and constantly looking for more power, and doing whatever it takes, even if it costs him his own life at that point, because he's this really dangerous person, because he goes with this mentality of constantly having nothing to lose, even when he does have a family. So he does pay the price in that, in losing his own family. And when we see him in the games with his son Atreus, we see that he is much different. He is more stable in his mind. He's not this wild brute, this person who's like thirsty for blood. He is more calm and reasonable, as the memes suggest. And yeah, we see that even when he's like having the fight between Thor and Odin, that like he's really not trying to fight with everything he has. Like he's fighting to create peace. Even when he's like contradicting himself, is like, I don't want this fight, and he's fighting. He's doing it to really protect himself. He doesn't want to die. He doesn't want his son to die. Like that's his most valuable person at the moment, because the mother died while birthing a child is when she died. So he obviously wants to protect his son, even if it costs his own life, of course. But his purpose is not to just get himself killed, of course. We see this throughout the game. And in a way, he's in the DLC for the 5th God of War. We see him confront himself, unless it's the 4th game, I don't remember. But in the DLC, he confronts himself and talks to his younger version of himself, and he says that he can't redeem himself, but he still sees himself as a god of hope and takes his throne. And of course, when he says that, he almost immediately takes back what he says about himself, just being a god of fools and just being this cruel, angry, arrogant person, because he was those things. Those things are a part of his history that he's never going to take away, but only acknowledge and see that even if he doesn't immediately find redemption within himself, he can always turn things around to be a better human being and do good, and not just be in this box, stuck in this box and just stay that way for the rest of your life. And I think it is so inspiring when there are people like that who have walked a very bad path, who's walked a path that was definitely not in the right direction, where you made a lot of bad decisions and did a lot of wrongdoing, and you find it within yourself to want to turn that around. I think that's really inspiring. There's definitely real life people who have done that, and the fact that it's in a video game just makes it, again, like very powerful stuff. So with Kratos, I'm not sure if he can truly redeem himself again, but the fact that he tries to turn his life around and search for peace instead of war and always wanting to kill is definitely something very different, and it's nicer to see that than the previous games where he's just looking to murder everything that stands in his way. So that's the best way I could put that. And it's very similar with Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption 2. He starts off as this loyal guy to Dutch van der Linde and his gang of misfits. And, it's because Dutch is also known as a silver tongue. He's a master manipulator. He can get a lot of people to do things for him, and he won't feel any remorse or regret attached to that. Like he doesn't regret the choices he makes, even if it's at the expense of other people suffering. So Dutch pretty much sees his gang of misfits as expendable. A lot of them lose their lives. A lot of them go through harsh torture, and they're always saying like, where were you, Dutch? Where were you when I needed you? And you eventually understand that in this game, Dutch really doesn't care as much as he likes to pretend he does. He just wants to get what he wants, which is a lot of money and constantly traveling and fighting the law. And, that can only take you so far. People will instantly start seeing how that's going to cause problems and have feuds between again, misfits. So what's great about Arthur is that if you play him the right way, which I would argue in this game is like a high honor, it just means that you're helping people out instead of trying to like rob them and stuff. That's truly who he is as a character. When he's like robbing and stuff, he's doing it for Dutch, he's doing it for the gang so that they have money and provisions, so they're not like, again, suffering for whatever they can't be able to provide themselves with. And they rob banks, they shoot people, they kill authorities. Like, you get what it is. It's kind of like Grand Theft Auto, but the difference is that, you know, it's like a Western style game. There's cowboys, and it's in a time where like that's becoming out of fashion, and we're getting into industrialization. So, you know, you just see like an end of an era in this game, and a part of that was Arthur, and he's like, well, you could also argue that it's John Marston who truly dies with it if you played the first one. So yeah, I know there's going to be so many spoilers, but as I mentioned, that's just what it is. Like, you got to talk about these things, and you got to talk about it thoroughly. So yeah, the Arthur dies in such a poetic way because of the title, redemption, and all that. He does, in a way, redeem a lot of what he sees that isn't working anymore. And you hear that with a lot of the people he talks to, Hosea, Mary Beth, Lenny, all of these characters, even John Marston himself, and they're like brothers. So it's really crazy to see how even when you're like in the wrong path, something more tangible as Arthur Morgan, and then eventually having life do a 180 on him, and he gets tuberculosis and he's dying from that. You know, you can see how things can be shifted in a way that's completely unexpected, and it's almost like life giving karma to you for the wrongdoing that you've done, because everything has a consequence to it, and sometimes it comes in different ways. And with Arthur, like, you feel some sort of sympathy for him, for sure, because you think that he deserves better. He did so much for someone who absolutely was using him, and, you know, he paid the price for it, and it was really sad. And that's the kind of gaming that I like. I like seeing characters who you wouldn't think would ever turn the tables that way, especially if they're down a wrong path, because I think it's easy to give up on people who have been swayed the wrong direction and just see them as this person in this box the rest of their life. And, you know, I used to think that, like, if you were something that people saw you as, that's what you were always going to be, and that's such a lie and a terrible way to live life. Like, don't allow yourself to be limited by other people's views. And there was a perfect quote by Kratos that he said when he was talking to his younger self: "You were always more than what they saw." I just want to let that sink in. You were always more than what they saw. So, you know, if that's not inspiring, I don't know what is, because that's also coming from a character that's extremely flawed. And even more credit to the writers, because they deserve that credit for making such a great dialogue, and the developers and all the team members for creating such an amazing game. I know it's very violent and all of this and that, but there are great qualities even when games are very violent. I know these games are violent, but that's not the point. The point I'm trying to make is that the characters have qualities that I really enjoy, whether it's gaming and TV, movies, because there are movies that are also similar where there's like a bad character, there's a evil character who is starting to see the flaws in his ways and wants to like do things differently. Like there are definitely films as well that are like that. Even with anime, you know, there are characters like Sasuke Uchiha, Vegeta. It's kind of harder to think of it with films, but you know, if you watch Marvel, you can sort of think of someone like Wanda. She's definitely a character who started off good and then she became evil, but a part of her is still good, even though she has done some wrongdoing. And yeah, that's all I got for this video. If you're a gamer and you enjoy RPG style games, check out God of War, check out Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. These are definitely games that are really strong with like the storytelling and character development, and if those are things that you also enjoy, you're definitely gonna really like these games. They have a very strong emotional impact, and they're also very inspiring in other ways that are unique. So I really enjoy that. And yeah, there's just so much also good to say about these games in terms of like immersion and graphics that I haven't even talked about, but I just wanted to focus mostly on the characters and their stories and brushing on that a little bit. These games are extremely long, so I can't talk about everything, but if I find anything else that's worth mentioning, I'll make another video on it, and that's how I'll leave it. So thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, and peace out.